Dr. Ria Roy Maman. I'm a faculty at Leiden University. Disclaimer, this is not an official channel of Leiden University and I'm just sharing in my personal capacity and my experiences. So, നിങ്ങളുടെ എല്ലാവരുടെയും മനസ്സിൽ ഒരാശയെങ്കിലും പോയിട്ടുള്ളൊരു കാര്യമായിരിക്കും ഹൗ ഇസ് ഇറ്റ് ടു സ്റ്റേ എബ്രോഡ്, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ നാട്ടിൻ്റെ വെളിയിൽ, ഇന്ത്യയുടെ വെളിയിൽ പോയിട്ട് പഠിക്കാനും ജോലി ചെയ്യാനുള്ള ഒരു എക്സ്പീരിയൻസ് കിട്ടണം എന്നുള്ളത്. ഇഫ് നോട്ട് ഫോർ ദ കിഡ്സ്, ദിസ് വുഡ് ബി എ തോട്ട് ഇൻ ദ മൈൻഡ് ഓഫ് ദ പേരൻസ്. And I've seen this in the capacity as a faculty where I give letter of recommendation to my students who have mixed choice of preference of universities. So when you make a choice like that, we should also keep in mind this is not just about your academic future that you're making a choice. It's an investment that you make it financially, emotionally as well as physically. About a context, I thought it would be some things to share, some thoughts with you. But before that, I thought it would be also nice that you know my credentials so that you know what I'm talking about. I have a PhD in law from National School of India University. Apart from having a PhD, I've been an international fellow under the Linus Palme Fellowship to Sweden for my master's, as well as into Canadian Shastri Fellowship during my research scholarship. So with this background, I thought it would be nice to consider some of the factors that you would look at when you're considering a master's. ഇത് നോക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് ഐ വുഡ് സജസ്റ്റ് നിങ്ങൾ 4 ഫണ്ടമെൻ്റൽസ് മനസ്സിൽ വെക്കുക. ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് വൈ, വാട്ട്, വെൻ ആൻഡ് വെയർ. ഈ 4 ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് വെച്ച് വേണം എപ്പോഴും നിങ്ങളൊരു പ്രോഗ്രാം കൺസിഡർ ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ തുടങ്ങാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട്. All of these questions invariably would have a reflection on the way you prepare your application, and that too for a top-tier institutes. See, it's not difficult to get a master's abroad. You could go to a country with a private university, get your master's there. You still got your experience. But what is important is when you target a top-tier institute. And when I say top-tier institute, it matters. Your credibility, the learnings that you get, the networking that you develop makes a considerable amount of difference. But നമുക്കതിനെ താമസിക്കാൻ 4 കാര്യങ്ങളിലേക്ക് പോകാം. Now, first question of why do you want to do your masters? എല്ലാവരും ചെയ്യുന്നത് കൊണ്ട് ഞാനും ചെയ്യുന്നു എന്നുള്ളതാണോ, അതോ do you want to do it for a specific reason? And this is very personal. Every top-tier institute, when you write your statement of purpose or letter of motivation, looks out with this key area about what is that motivated you to take up this program. That could be your career aspirations. That could be a fact that you want to make a contribution to the community. That could be also about your personal development. But there's always a reason why you're doing this program. അതല്ലാതെ randomly ഇത് ചെയ്തു തീർന്നു പോയി എന്നുള്ളതിലല്ല. That why question is very important, right? So what you're going to do now is, under why, you're going to put out 3 reasons why do you want to do a master's or a study program outside. Masters മാത്രമല്ല, ഒരു ഗ്രാജുവേഷൻ ആയാൽ പോലും. Second question is what is that you want to do your master's program in? And this is usually a dilemma people would face. Sometimes I see that now the trend is on AI and law. There's a crowd that runs to AI and law. Now, why would you want to do AI and law? As an academic, doing a master's program AI and law would say that you want to specialize in it. Or are you working that specific area? Or does it have a contribution to be made onto your space? എന്നുള്ളത് വളരെ ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻ്റ് ആണ്. Because that choice of the specialization has an impact on your future ahead. See, again I have a disclaimer. ഒരു മാസ്റ്റേഴ്സ് ചെയ്തത് കൊണ്ട് മാത്രം എൻ്റെ ജോബ് സെക്യൂരിറ്റിയോ എൻ്റെ കരിയർ പ്രോഗ്രഷൻ ആവണം എന്നില്ല. ബിക്കോസ് ദാറ്റ് ഹാസ് ടു അലൈൻ വിത്ത് യുവർ കരിയർ ഗോൾസ്, റൈറ്റ്? ഇപ്പം ഫോർ എ പേഴ്സൺ ഹു ഹാസ് എൻ ഇൻക്ലിനേഷൻ ടു ഹ്യൂമൻ റൈറ്റ്സ് കംസ് ആൻഡ് ഡസ് എ കോർപ്പറേറ്റ് ലോ മാസ്റ്റേഴ്സ് ബിക്കോസ് ദാറ്റ്സ് വാട്ട് ദ ജോബ് പെർസ്പെക്ട്സ് ലൈ, it wouldn't suffix for my future ahead. Because എന്നെ റിക്രൂട്ട് ചെയ്യാൻ വരുന്ന ആൾക്കാർ ആ ഒരു ചോദ്യം ഉണ്ടാവും as to why did you have to choose this master's, because your inclination lies to a specific area. This also works because when people are trying to migrate and trying to find a job outside your jurisdiction, they would try and look at master's program that suits that. That's brilliant. പക്ഷെ ഒരു കാര്യം നമ്മൾ മനസ്സിൽ വെക്കേണ്ടതും കൂടെ എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ, now that the political scenario is changing worldwide, so it's not that people are, of course job markets are still there, but we should also understand that the idea of international candidates in the job market is also facing an alteration. അപ്പോൾ അതും മനസ്സിൽ വെച്ചിട്ട് വേണം when you choose a master's for a longer run, that my master's inclines to my career aspiration, and it also reflects the test of time that okay, ഈ ഒരു ജോബ് മാർക്കറ്റ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പോലും when I move a jurisdiction it still adds value എന്നുള്ളത്. That brings me to the third point about where. Now jurisdiction becomes very important. നമ്മളൊരു jurisdiction choose ചെയ്യുമ്പം of course there are numerous factors that you consider, and mostly it's the financial cost incurred. For example, places like Ireland and stuff like that, your masters might be a lot more cheaper than when you choose say US. For instance, even for that matter, Netherlands. I met a student who's going to do his masters for 45,000 euros, which is close to 45 lakhs. Topping it with the expense of stay and likewise. അപ്പോൾ അത് എടുക്കുമ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് ഫിനാൻഷ്യൽ കോസ്റ്റ് ഡെഫിനറ്റ്ലി ഒരു ഫാക്ടറാണ്. Now let's say you may manage to finance it and your finance is not a factor for it. Then it's important to understand what is the jurisdiction popular for. For instance, if I'm going to do an international law masters, my choice about international law would definitely be Netherlands because of its contribution to the international jurisprudence. അപ്പം അങ്ങനെ നോക്കുമ്പം my choice of jurisdiction becomes important. Second thing, നമ്മൾ jurisdiction നോക്കുമ്പം stay back പോളിസിയുള്ള സ്ഥലങ്ങൾ നമ്മൾ നോക്കാറുണ്ട്. For example, if you're coming to Netherlands for your masters, ഇവിടെ stay back per se ഇല്ലെങ്കിലും they give you something called as an orientation visa, which means if you can prove your financial backing to stay back and search for a job during a period of 1 year, they permit you to stay back in that regard, which compared to maybe Australia, Canada is different. So jurisdiction is very important. It also, especially when it comes to law, the concept about civil and common law country also makes a difference, because your career aspiration, that's where we come back to your career aspiration. What is that you would want to go back and do? Are you planning to go back and contribute to back to your field? നാട്ടിലേക്ക് തിരിച്ചു പോയിട്ട് അതിലേക്ക് കണ്ടിന്യൂ ചെയ്യാനാണെന്നുള്ളതൊരു മേജർ ഫാക്ടറാണ്. ആൻഡ് ഓഫ് കോഴ്സ് the ranking of the institute. That definitely then brings us to the fourth point of when are you going to do this? My suggestion to aspirants there is get work experience, because that makes a lot of difference to your possibility of getting into one of the top tier institutes. Because when I say top tier, I'm talking about say in the first 100 ranking of institutes. Avade, when you are applying for a post, they care about what you bring to their institute as well. That makes a difference, and that would also enhance your probability of getting a scholarship. Now when you talk about your work experience, or 5 to 6 years work experience ullappam, a person coming with that backing always has an upper hand compared to a person who's a fresher, because the person likely to be benefited from such intensive master's program is higher than otherwise. And because ipachela programs, if you look at the commercial law that we have here, advanced commercial law programs, has a lot of drafting involved that involves industry experience. Adina, what you can sharpen your skill becomes very, very relevant. So when you apply with a master, when you apply with a experience, it makes a level of difference, right? Now you got a general idea of all of this. Now ee oru base vechittana that you are now going to develop your application. Bore editpichilla ennu vishwasikkunnu. Venengi namukku oru break edutittu thirichu varam. We've discussed the 4 fundamentals of why, what, when, where. Let's look at the general application process. Of course, you have humpty videos that shares all the details with specifications about people who have gone for their masters. Ellam parayunnundu. As a faculty, from my capacity and usually what I see around and my interaction with the students here at the Leiden is what I would throw some light into. First and foremost is your transcript. So it matters what you've learned during your course. So if you're going to sleep through 5 years and then decide to do a master's, you might have certain difficulties. Because a 5-year course becomes your fundamentals and your foundation, and that proves that you're a person who's capable of handling that level of stress. But your transcript describes your progress, how you performed, and your academic inclination, because usually at master's level edukkunna samayathu, especially again I'm looking at the top tier institutes, that academic inclination and your ability to cope up with that is very, very important. That goes for, like, say, for example, a university like Harvard. Our first condition is, when you look at these requirements, is what percentile of within the students that you would fall under. Do you have a 70% or more? Or, likewise would be the question. Now, transcript alone is not the criteria here. Then your other thing that you, along with your transcript, equally important is your resume building. That shows the versatility of activities that you're involved with. So the moot courts, debates, outreach activity, legal aid clinics, sports, culturals, paper presentations, conferences that you've attended carries value. In fact, it carries the same amount of value as your transcript, right? So the 5 years is the place where you make that investment. So if some people come and tell you, ഇന്ന് രാവിലെ എഴുന്നേറ്റപ്പോഴാണ് ഞാൻ തീരുമാനിച്ച മാസ്റ്റേഴ്സ് ചെയ്യാമെന്ന് പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ they are telling you wrong. അവരുടെ മനസ്സിൽ എപ്പോഴെങ്കിലും ഒക്കെ ഉണ്ടായിട്ടുണ്ടാവും, അതേഴ്സ് ഇറ്റ് വുഡ് ബി ബാക്ക് ഓഫ് ദ ഹെഡ് ടു സേ ദാറ്റ് യെസ് ഐ വോണ്ട് ടു ഡു ദിസ് ഔട്ട്സൈഡ് ആൻഡ് ദിസ് ഇസ് വാട്ട് ഐ ഹാവ് എൻ ഐഡിയ അബൌട്ട് എന്നുള്ളത്. അപ്പോൾ കീപ് ദാറ്റ് ഇൻ മൈൻഡ് ആൻഡ് ഹൗ യു യൂട്ടിലൈസ് യുവർ സ്പേസ് ആൻഡ് ടൈം ദെൻ. Second important part, or what is the determining factor, would be your statement of purpose of letter of motivation. I have made a couple of mistakes here and I learned it the hard way. Our statement of purpose, and by now with the information that you have, you would have also figured that statement of purpose is not reinstating your CV. They already know facts. They don't want your facts. But they want to know what is that is driving you to do this program. അതിൽ നിങ്ങൾ ഫോക്കസ് ചെയ്യേണ്ട കുറച്ച് കാര്യങ്ങൾ എങ്ങനെയാണെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ, ആദ്യം നിങ്ങളെ എന്തെങ്കിലും ഒരു ഇൻസിഡൻറ്റോ ഇൻസ്റ്റൻസോ ഉണ്ടായിട്ടുണ്ടാവുമല്ലോ ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് ഡ്രിവൻ യു ടു ടേക്ക് അപ്പ് ലോ ആൻഡ് ടു ചൂസ് എ സ്പെസിഫിക് ഏരിയ ഓഫ് ലോ. അത് ചിലപ്പോൾ ഒരു ചൈൽഡ്ഹുഡ് ഇൻസ്റ്റൻസ് ആയിരിക്കാം, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇറ്റ് മൈറ്റ് ബി എൻ ഇൻട്രാക്ഷൻ വിത്ത് എ പേഴ്സണാലിറ്റി, സം ഇൻസ്പിറേഷൻ ദറ്റ് യു ഹവ് ഡ്രോൺ. ഒന്ന്. രണ്ട്, നിങ്ങളെപ്പറ്റി തന്നെ ഐഡൻറ്റിഫൈ ചെയ്ത കുറച്ച് സ്കിൽസ് ഉണ്ടാവുമല്ലോ നിങ്ങളൊരു ആക്ടിവിറ്റി ചെയ്ത സമയത്ത്. ചിലപ്പോൾ ഒരു മൂട്ട് തോറ്റ സമയത്തായിരിക്കാം ദറ്റ് യു ഫിഗേർഡ് ദിസ് വേ യുവർ സ്കിൽസ് ആൻഡ് ദിസ് ഇസ് വേ യു ലാക്കിംഗ് ആൻഡ് യു ഐഡൻറ്റിഫൈഡ് ദാറ്റ് ലാക്കിംഗ് ആൻഡ് യു വർക്ക്ഡ് എഗൻസ്റ്റ് ഇറ്റ്. ദാറ്റ് വൺ, ആ ഒരു പാർട്ട് ഓഫ് റെസിലിയൻസ് ആൻഡ് ഷോയിങ് ദറ്റ് യു വർക്ക്ഡ് ടുവേർഡ്സ് കവറിങ് അപ്പ് വാട്ട് യു മിസ്ഡ് ഔട്ട് ഓൺ. തേർഡ് തിങ് ഇസ് നിങ്ങൾ എന്തൊക്കെ കോൺട്രിബ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്യാൻ ശ്രമിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്, that drive of giving back to the community or what you've given back to your career. And most important, what the people around you can learn from you. Because when the institute takes you in, it's not just about training you. It's also about the value that you would bring to the classroom for your peers. So when you say, I'm an Indian from Kerala, or I'm a person from this particular space, and because of my rich experience in this and the diversity that I bring, or my local experience that has an international relevance, I bring in some value. Our value ne share cheyanum I should be able to explain in my statement of purpose or my letter of motivation. Once that is set and you get through your proofread, next most important, I would say, is a game changer, is the letter of recommendation. So you need to remember, more than the person's position, it's that person's relationship with you that is important. So when I give a letter of recommendation, I make it a point that I would give it only to students that I've taught or had a chance to work with. Because when I write the duration of time I worked with a person, nature of work that I've carried out, how have I been able to observe the person's working style, contribution that person has made becomes very relevant. അപ്പോൾ ഒരു ലെറ്റർ ഓഫ് റെക്കമെൻഡേഷൻ നമ്മൾ ചോദിക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് it would always be nice to give some pointers to your faculty as well. For example, when you ask your faculty for a letter of recommendation, you tell about the courses the person has taught you, the assignment that you've done for the person, the interaction of the questions that you had answered in the class, the discussion that you've been part of, how you face that challenge, and how the person had an opportunity to evaluate you and testify you എന്നുള്ളത് കൊടുക്കുക. അപ്പം your letter of recommendation will carry a part that states that I've had the opportunity as a faculty to observe the student who has proved their skills in these areas. And this particular instance, like your discussion, the point I figured that their argumentative skill is at an par with excellence. No, okay, എനിക്ക് factual വെച്ച് state ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. And that makes a difference in your work, because ബാക്കിയെല്ലാം നമ്മളെ തെറ്റി പറയുന്നതാണ്. സോ അത് ടെസ്റ്റിഫൈ ചെയ്ത് ഒരാൾ പറയാണ് ഞാൻ കണ്ടു, and that person is going to contribute back or contribute in the institution he or she is going to be, makes a large difference. അത് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് ചില സ്ഥലത്ത് റൈറ്റിംഗ് സാമ്പിൾ ചോദിക്കാം, ചില സ്ഥലത്ത് നമ്മുടെ ഓഫ് കോഴ്സ് പിന്നെ വരുന്ന ഒരു ഫാക്ടറാണ് നമ്മുടെ ഫിനാൻഷ്യൽ സ്റ്റേറ്റ്മെൻറ്റ്. That I would say is something that we can always figure out a way. It could be that you take it up from your parents' money, from your savings, or from a loan, or you would have that much of money to just throw away. So in these cases, before you make this financial investment, take a minute to think, because parents in the ayalum, like say bank loan ayalum, it's definitely a lump sum investment that you're going to make. Appam ee oru factor namakku work out cheyan, that's just technical matters. That's something that's doable, I would say, if you can sort out the others before it. Of course, there are more detailing that we would need to do with it all, and I'm sure you would all give yourself a thought before you get into this. Appam engina